someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black?
Bruh. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Idigrxss. I'm Renee, and this is
Jure.
Sebastian's on the ground eating a rice cake. Today we're going to be reacting to What is a Woman? It's a documentary by Matt Walsh. This should be interesting. I'm not even going to talk about it. Let's just get into it. Football, an American family, dolls, tiaras. This is what you want for your kids.
Being a dad is one of the great privileges of my life.
In the state of Tennessee, I'm a licensed marital and family therapist, which basically means I've been trained up to think about like systems, family systems, how we were raised up, how that shapes who we are today.
So on your website, if you'll bear with me,
Sure.
Quoting, you say, I use a combination of approaches in my therapeutic work, including anti-oppression, feminist, and narrative frameworks. I rely deeply on systems theory and understanding that individuals are products of and in dialogue with our surroundings, including our families, broader culture, workplaces, nature, and political climates. What does that mean?
Yeah. So thinking about the modalities that I use, I'm definitely informed by like feminist family therapy, and the idea is that we live in gendered worlds where there are certain imperatives that are placed on us about who we are and what we do based on how we've been gendered. From the minute I was assigned female, I was told, okay, these are
This man's face is killing me, huh? What you talking about, Willis?
the kind of clothing that you're going to wear. These are the kind of the type of play that you're going to engage in as a child. The path that maybe your life will take because of social expectations.
What do you mean by assigned female? Who assigns female?
Yeah. So most times people, when they're born, they're assigned a gender
By the
doctors. Yeah.
Like, what do they base that assignment on?
So basically, it's based on genitalia. So people looking at genitalia and deciding, okay, this is a girl or a boy. And we know now that that sex and gender are so much more than just this binary.
You know, it's very, very interesting. She bases her credibility off of schooling.
Okay.
Right? An institution that says that she's correct, right?
Okay.
Doctors base their credibility off the same thing. For some reason, when it comes to gender, their credibility doesn't matter, even though it comes from the same institution. Confusing.
Because their practice is in sex and her practice is in gender. And
that cleared up so much.
The doctors.
Yeah. Like, what do they base that assignment on?
So basically, it's based on genitalia. So people looking at genitalia and deciding, okay, this is a girl or a boy. And we know now that that sex and gender are so much more than just this binary. Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas. That's not how gender works.
How do we know that? How do we know that that's not true? Where did we learn that from?
Yeah, well, I learned that from hearing from transgender people who've said like, oh, I'm a trans woman, and just because I happen to have a penis, right, that doesn't mean that this is like who I am as a person, or that genitalia doesn't equal gender. Who they are, their gender expression, that, yeah, a trans woman is a woman.
With the fluidity of these things, how do I know if I'm a woman? You know,
That's a great question.
I like scented candles, and
Yeah.
I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do I know?
Yeah, Matt, that question right there, like that question is like when it's asked with a lot of curiosity, right? That's the beginning of a lot of people's like gender identity development journeys.
If my mom who gave birth to me is a woman, and my wife is a woman, though I haven't asked her, maybe I should. But if they're all women, and also the boy who sits down with you and says, I think I'm a girl, actually is one, then what is a woman?
Yeah.
You know exactly what that made me think of.
But the way she said was like that man was a preacher. Like, well, how do I know what a woman is? Amen. And that's where we start our journey. Matt, close your eyes.
Great question. I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Oh,
Let me start with a real basic question. What is a woman? I don't want to assume, but you guys are all
Yeah.
women?
We're all women.
Yes, we're women.
So how would you define it, like in the simplest terms?
That is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is a stumper.
Defining womanhood is just a project of someone who identifies as a woman.
Yeah, but what do they identify? You see what I'm saying? What do they identify as? They identify as a woman, but what is that?
I honestly don't know.
Surely someone who does sex change surgeries can answer what a woman is. Dr. Marcy Bowers, first of all, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.
So you're a world-renowned gynecologist and surgeon. You're also a transgender woman. Can you tell me a little bit about...
Well, I mean, I identify as a woman.
wait,
What?
but what? No, play it.
I identify as a woman.
That's what I
But-
said.
You're a woman, right?
I'm a woman with, I mean, that's my life day to day. But I have a transgender history.
What?
So
What
one
does that
one thing
mean?
on your website, it says gender affirmed, GAV, gender affirming vaginoplasty. Does anyone ever regret their surgeries? Or, well, we know they do, but how often do people regret their surgeries?
Well, actually, we don't know that they do. There are legitimate detransitioners, and there are people who truly feel that in their journey, they may have made a mistake. Now, fortunately, this is a really, really uncommon phenomenon.
I just want to make special note of doublespeak.
Okay.
He said, are there any people that regret their transition? Well, of course, we know that they do, but how often does it occur? She says, actually, we don't know. And then says, there are people that detransition, and it's uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you detransition if you didn't regret it? At least one of those people regretted it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of people in the trans-abled community. These are people who are physically able-bodied but feel like they should be disabled or identify as such. For example, a man who has two arms but feels like he should have one. If a man in this
Why'd you jerk back at that?
but feels like he should have one, if
Why is that so different?
this kind of marginalized community went to the doctor and said, I want to have my arm cut off. Do you think that?
That doesn't have anything to do with gender identity.
Well, it's someone's self-identity, how someone identifies.
That's someone who has and I'll accept it as a mental diagnosis, a psychiatric condition. I don't even pretend to know what aptomenophilia is all about, but somehow it's the idea that you're fascinated or charmed by having a limb or part of a limb missing. Okay, I would say that's, pardon my non-medical language, kooky.
Why is that kooky and what you're doing not?
Well, that's his next question, I'm sure.
You don't see any? You think this is totally irrelevant?
Yep.
So the biggest, broadest question is, but what is a woman?
A woman is it's a combination of your physical attributes and then what you're showing to the world and the gender clues that you give. And hopefully those match your gender identity.
The critics on the other side of this,
Ma'am, you don't think there's critics? What box do you live in?
San Francisco?
Fair enough.
There aren't many, but go ahead.
there aren't many who would disagree with what you're saying about.
Well, the dinosaurs of the world are certainly out there.
Ad hominem attack? Okay.
How long have you been running the shop here?
25 years.
Wow. Now, you had an incident here a little while ago that went really viral online. Lots of reaction in the public.
Aberdeen Councilwoman Tiesa Meskis confronted owner Don Suker about a sign he posted in his store.
It's a big woman. It's a whole lot of woman. I mean, that is about 275 pounds minimum bench pressing worth of woman.
I just put the sign up over here, And he came around the corner, and I thought, okay, I recognize him. I says, oh, I recognize you. You're our new city councilman. He says, no, I'm your new city councilwoman. So it was kind of on from there.
You know what? It's bullshit.
No, what you're spouting is bullshit.
No, it's not. Trans women are women, sir. That sign is bullshit.
Now, when you're in a situation like that, what are the rules of engagement? Because typically you shouldn't put your hands on a woman. As a whole lot of person, you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what the rules are, but like, he didn't have to stand there and have that conversation, like, because you're in my place of business.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think the answer to that is a very gender neutral solution.
Like a mush?
No, 9mm. If it pops off, if it becomes, you know what I mean, and you have to defend yourself, I'm just throwing that out there.
All right, Tory Lanez.
My name is Michelle Forcier, and I have a medical degree from University of Connecticut, residency, University of Utah Pediatrix, and I've worked for a number of different Planned Parenthoods for 20 years.
Is the blue-haired feminist thing, is it an inside joke? Or do the blue-haired feminists know that they're being called blue-haired feminists? Like literally? Or is it ironic? Are they doing it ironically? Because if I were a feminist and I wanted to dye my hair, blue would be the last color. You know what I mean? Only because I can't anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like at this point,
if I was a black Republican, I would never wear a trucker hat or a flannel.
You can't wear a red hat at all. Red hats are out now.
Just because.
It could have nothing on it. You can't wear it.
So you've done a lot of work in this field. Could you just start by telling us?
Sure.
At what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early, and the reason why we say, oh, that's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction?
Telling that family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified, no matter what else occurs in their life, that's not correct.
So what does gender affirmation care? You're a big proponent of. If we walk through, a child is sitting down with you, is questioning their gender. What's the gender affirmation process?
Affirmation means that as a pediatrician, as someone who says my job is to provide the best medical care for you, is I need to listen really carefully. And how I put it in words for kids so that they can understand it is, tell me your story. Where have you been in terms of your gender and your gender identity? Where are you right now? And more excitingly, where would you like to be in the future?
Have you ever heard a story from a kid? They're wretched. Kids are horrible at telling stories.
You know, I just thought about, you know how she was like, well, I'm assuming she's a she, but
I don't know how you make that assumption.
like this is 100% male, right? Because of that little penis. This is 100% male.
What other percentage would it be?
Well, let's include, the whole trans ideology or whatever here. Okay. What's the chances that they would be trans? Maybe 1%?
That would be extremely high.
Maybe 1%?
That'd be extremely high.
So, okay, so 99.5% chance that this is a male. Like if they phrased it like that, maybe you would be more comfortable with that. But you know what that makes me think of is you have a kid, you get a paternity test on it, and it says 99.9% match of DNA. Mm-hmm. Would you then say, well, there's no way you could say this 100%.
The father. I'm not paying for this baby.
I'm just saying, it's like, if we're saying 100%, we're just rounding up at this point. Like, it's less than a 1% chance.
Have you ever met a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus? Mm-hmm. So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
They have an appropriate 4-year-old handle on the
Sure.
reality
Agreed.
that's very real for them.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But Santa Claus is real for them, but
Yeah.
Santa Claus is not actually real.
Yeah, well, but Santa Claus does deliver their Christmas presents.
No, and this might just be a black thing, but my mom made sure to let me know that no fat white man was coming down the chimney giving us these presents. As a matter of fact, we didn't even get very much presents. It was my uncle who we would usually go to his house and get presents, and he would just line the basement with presents. Like, we didn't know Uncle was rich. Well, not rich, but he did well for himself because he drove a Geo Metro. But every Christmas, man, he would give us presents, and it was kind of an amazing thing. So we used like where presents came from. So that's I kind of got in trouble a lot in school for being like, Santa Claus ain't real.
Well, if anything, like I feel around the 4-year-old scope on things.
I agree with that.
But now we're talking about this child is operating off of information that an adult has given them.
Right.
Now, if you are giving this child information about how they may not be what they were, assigned at birth, then they're going to be operating off of the information that they're being given. The same thing can be said on the other side. It's like you tell them they're male when they come out, and now they're operating off of what they've been told. So it works both ways. But what I'm saying is, like,
you are admitting that to some degree that the child is susceptible to believing myths.
Yeah.
They don't have enough ability to be like, that's not true.
Well, yeah, but he's not real, though.
To that child, they are.
When I see a child who, believes in Santa Claus, and then let's say this is a boy and he says, I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who can't distinguish between fantasy and reality. So how could you take that as a reality?
I would say that as a pediatrician and as a parent, I would say how wonderful my 4-year-old and their imagination is.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question. Wonderful imagination, sure. They do have a wonderful imagination, but we're talking about some pretty serious stuff. Like, we don't need an imagination when it's going to determine so much of somebody's life. At such a young age, irreversible moves we're making here. Irreversible.
If I say that I feel a certain way, then obviously you can't tell me I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
But just because I feel that way, does that mean that it's true?
I mean, if it's your reality.
If it's your reality.
It's truly like none of my business who you
So we all have our own
identity.
realities?
I find it quite interesting that women have been taken with this my reality, my truth kind of rhetoric and ideals. I first saw it more so with women than anything else. And I don't know if it's just because men are not able to live in a world where it's their reality, it's usually reality. Mm-hmm. And if you're living in a world where it's your reality, people will appropriately call you out for not living in reality. There is one truth. There is no truths. There is one truth, right?
Well, there is a combined truth. And I'm not saying that I believe there are multiple truths. I believe there's one truth, but there are multiple understandings and perspectives and vantage points on the same thing. So it's like, the idea of Sonder or whatever, it's like, where you have your perspective in your life and every passing person has their own individual lives, and every person they pass has their own individual lives. And you can't expect all those perspectives to be the same and all the conclusions that they come to on the same situations to be the same. Even though we're all looking at the same 1 + 1, it might not all equal 2 to everyone. So there is, where did I lose you?
If we're looking at 1 + 1, it might not equal 2 to everyone.
I use that as an example. I'm not saying if we're looking at the literal math. Okay.
But
we could look at the
about.
same pair of pants and I say those are navy blue and you say those are black. we're looking at the same pair of pants. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
now they can be black and I can be wrong.
Yeah.
And the truth is that they're black.
Yeah, there's one truth.
I said that, but my perspective on the thing is that it's navy blue. My understanding of the thing is that it's navy blue.
And you're incorrect.
That's fine.
But I'm saying, but that my entire point is this: there is true. There's not truths, and I think the problem is that we make these slow creeps into this dangerous delusion. And not even just gender or whatever. I mean, just in general, when we start to entertain the idea that people's perspectives can simply be true because they believe it. There is truth. If 1 + 1 is 2, because somebody doesn't see it as that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're correct. There are things that just are true. Now, there's commonly held to be true, and then there's like just, I think, like a universal truth, and that's a bigger discussion. But we do have to have some common denominators that we all hold ourselves to. And I think when things like this aren't checked at the lowest end, it grows into this monster where we now have this. It's a very pervasive thing. You see it on the internet all the time where people be like, my truth. It's to anything.
I think
I didn't murder that woman. It's my truth.
I don't think that's what the thing is. I think
okay.
I think that perspective and truth have been conflated.
Yes.
So
yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm not saying that the my truth thing is even a thing. I think it is poor language for saying my perspective, my vantage point, my feelings.
I think that's very generous of you to say that. But the reality of the situation is it's intentionally used to change to people's advantage. These aren't people saying these things in a context that would lend itself to, hey, this is just how I think about it. Hey, this is just my opinion. Because we already have a word for that. They're specifically using the word truth in an attempt with their words to bend reality. This is that secret affirmation bullcrap. It is what it is. And the reality situation is these words have a meaning. And I think that far too often we don't give credit to nefarious uses of words. Like I've mentioned that double speak before earlier in the video for a reason. That's an intentional thing to do. Not that everybody that double speak does it intentionally, but when it is done intentionally, it's for a reason. It is to misdirect. And I think that's something that if you don't nip this stuff in the bud, it gets too big and out of control. And the reality situation is there's principle and there's circumstance. There's rules and then there's exceptions to the rules. In a macro sense, we have to live by principles, not by circumstance. In a macro sense, we have to live by rules, not necessarily by the exceptions to the rules. My uncle was born with 6 fingers on each hand. No, on one hand. Humans don't have 6 fingers on one hand. They have 5. Humans have 10 fingers, 10 toes. Now, if we were to all change everything for my uncle being the exception to the rule, his truth, where are we now? We're with a bunch of gloves that don't fit.
Well, I disagree with changing everything for that person with the 6th finger.
What do you mean you disagree with that?
I don't think the goal of saying this is my truth is that everybody needs to apply it in the same way that I have. It is that you need to understand that this is as real to me as whatever you're saying is real to you. And my 6th finger is as real as your 5th finger is. And this is
where we come to an issue. This ends up being death by 1,000 cuts because people don't realize that where we end, not where it begins. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Where we end, unfortunately, is that everybody conforms to the outlier. We wouldn't be watching a documentary called What is a Woman if that wasn't the case.
Right. And I disagree with doing that. And I disagree with forcing people to adhere to that. Where I am is y'all can have 6 fingers over there. we have 5 fingers over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine that you have 6 fingers. And it's true for you that people have 6 fingers. But over here, people have 5 fingers. And we're not changing our gloves.
And I think most people would agree with that. What I'm saying is the symptom of changing words, the symptom of saying my truth when there is only one truth, is we end up here. No matter how much we would like to say, I'm cool with you having 6 fingers, but most of us don't. The reality of the situation is that when you change these words, we end up with 6-finger gloves for everyone. And it is a consistent process. It's a consistent march that we see all the time. Yeah. And once again, I don't think there's a problem until we start changing words and definitions of things, right? And I'm pointing out this whole my truth because it's the skinny end of a wedge, of a maul, of an axe, if you will, that makes way for the wider back end of it that splits the wood. Mm-hmm. And we can never see it. We only see a thin line when it's coming at us. She's like, what's that? And then your head split open. Last words is, what is a woman? I'm like,
just because I feel that way, does that mean that it's true?
I mean, if it's your reality. Okay.
Yeah, if it's your reality.
It's truly like none of my business who you
So we all have our own
identity.
realities. What if I said, I want you to say that it's true that I'm a woman? Would you say that?
Okay, you're a woman.
I would also say that.
If you want. I honestly don't care. Like, whatever makes you happy.
I think most people are like that dude. Most people are like that dude and that woman. It's like, if you, like, we don't care enough about what other people got going on to, like, really, raise arms about it. It's like, if you think you're a woman, like, bro, whatever, man. It's like, can you imagine, like, you being at the gas station, you're trying to buy something, and somebody's pulling that stuff on you? It's like, okay, bro, ma'am, sis, Newports. That's what I need. Thank you. Bye. I don't have time for this. I think it's what most people are. But unfortunately, because of that, it's very easy to usher in people as a mass, because people in mass are dumb. We're sheep.
What if I said that it's true? My truth is that you don't exist. Does that mean you no longer exist?
I mean, if that's your truth, sure. I don't.
Do you see what I'm saying?
But you do.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that I do, then I do.
Well, but even if I said that you don't, you still do, because we're having this conversation.
I mean, are we?
I think so.
You see what I'm saying? It's just asinine. This is what that leads to. Like, we end up here because of something as simple as just saying my truth. Like, oh yeah, no, it just means a perspective about no. Now we don't know if we're having a conversation.
Maybe it's like, some like science, like with Schrodinger's cats is like, I only exist if you can acknowledge that I exist. Like, I have to be in your frame of visions. Peekaboo works on babies because of this, but
on babies. Very interesting that we bring up babies that are deciding their own gender.
You no longer exist?
I mean, if that's your truth, sure. I don't. Because
but you do.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that I do, then I do.
Well, but even if I said that you don't, you still do, because we're having this conversation.
I mean, are we?
I think so. I mean, I thought...
Yes, that's what you think.
This stuff really should be more alarming than it is to most people. And there's a principle here that makes sense, and it exists for a reason. Mm-hmm. And, we're willing to throw that away. And it's like, then we just have mindless confusion. And like I said, I'm taking this away from what the video is actually about. This is just life. Mm-hmm. This is just life. Some things are what they call self-evident. Mm-hmm. You don't even need to prove it. You don't have to prove that we're having a conversation. You don't have to prove that we're recording a video, because it's self-evident. It's on you to disprove that that's happening, because it's self-evident.
Mm-hmm. I guess we should start with, we've got gender and sex, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
I saw that in your questions and I thought, my goodness, this is what we spend an entire semester kind of thinking through. But what we tend to think about in the social sciences today is that sex refers to a set of biological characteristics and gender is a social construct or category. what I think is often misleading about that characterization is allowed to be sort of messy and complicated. But in that framing, when you split them up into these wholly discrete constructs, studies scholars, and really more specifically people who study gender and sex, we're not talking about sexuality.
Always be weary of a person that gives you word salad to a simple question. Should be a quote. I don't know. That's just something I live by.
It's like you just retweeted your own tweet just now. like laughed at your own joke. It's like that. Yeah, that should be a bumper sticker.
It should be though. People need to be warned out here.
That's true.
You end up looking like, man, look at his face. That could be you if you don't take this advice.
So are gender and sex two different things, or?
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male then? Couldn't we plainly say this person is a male?
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important.
It's important enough for you to have a job to teach it. It's a disingenuous question. I'm just saying.
Reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is.
My truth.
I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would be.
I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth. Again, in social life.
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're going to stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you.
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
Why don't you tell me what your truth is? And you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back to, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
that's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
absolutely, we pursue truth,
right.
And I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
But you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say if you're saying the truth is that I get to say you're not a man, show me your genitalia. That's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean. Someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black?
Bruh. Do you see what I'm saying? That man just got split in the face with an axe. Are you black? This is what I'm talking about.
I mean, that Eve gene be out here.
Bruh.
Oh, man. That's a whole meme. Are you black? I'm going to clip that and use that on Twitter.
Oh, my
often.
gosh. This is wild. This is wild. This is a wild guy. But very interesting I noticed in this conversation is starts off the conversation in a tone of being, nice and blah, 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 blah. As soon as he started to hear things he didn't like, there was aggression and ad hominem attacks. That wasn't even passive aggression. That was aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep blah, 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 if you keep using this tone, if you keep blah, 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 we're going to end the interview. And I'm using the word aggression lightly. I'm just trying to make a distinction between aggression and passive aggression. not only defensive, but nothing in what Matt Walsh is saying is attacking the guy personally.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, he's attacking an idea and trying to have a discussion about an idea. And if you react this way to somebody trying to have a discussion of an idea, that's dangerous. You're teaching college kids?
He knows he's tap dancing on thin ice when it comes to his ideologies, when we get into the conversation of truth and reality. It's like, because truth, and like if we're talking biologically, not societally, not sociologically, if that's a word, like the truth biology is that you came out biologically, is that you came out with a vagina, therefore you are.
Right.
And so when we get, that's the basis of the, conversation that the old guy earlier was saying. It's like, it's very obvious what you are based on the truth, based on the realities of what you were born with. So I think the fact that the use of the word truth is attached to the rhetoric of, if you weren't born with it, then it doesn't apply to you. And so he gets his panties in a wad as soon as you use the word truth because of that. Because he knows what road we're going down.
But if your idea is solid, you can defend it.
But that's what I'm saying. He knows that he can't defend that.
But here's the crazy...
The biology,
right.
He can't defend that.
But what I'm saying is, it's like the idea that this guy has a job teaching something he cannot defend is terrifying. And this isn't necessarily even a knock on the idea as much as it is a knock on him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, you can't be tenured and not be able to defend what you're teaching, bro.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I guess this all comes back, this all comes down to really one question. What is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
He's got nothing, man.
I just really like to know.
Dang,
what do you
man.
think the answer to that question is?
He's got nothing. He's got nothing.
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor.
I know you are, but what am I? This guy.
Yeah.
This is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
What?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it, and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
How have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
I know you are, but what am I as an adult, bro?
Mm-hmm.
This is embarrassing.
No, he thinks he's just dunking on this guy. Look at his face.
Yeah.
He thinks
this
he's
is
just
embarrassing,
dunking.
man. And it's like, this is another problem I have, tone policing. Whenever somebody says, it's not that what you said is wrong, it's how you said it. Get the F out of my face. If you don't have anything to speak to the actual merits of what I'm saying, the argument, that is an ad hominem attack. You are attempting to deface the messenger and not the message. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any respect for that. I don't have any respect for that. Especially not from grown adults. Not from grown adults, man. If you're talking about kids or whatever, it's like, yeah, you kind of got to have kid gloves, hence the name of the term. But it's like, how you said it, well, how did I say it? And you don't have any answer? This is the true test of this. Somebody says they don't like how you said it. You ask them, how do you want me to, how should I have said it? How should I have said it? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say it in a way that changes what you meant. Well, then you're not really effectively communicating what I'm trying to communicate. Not better than I just did. So then how is that any better? No, you don't want me to say things. And this is an attempt to stop me from saying things that you don't like.
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is the work that I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
Right.
As a woman.
This is circular.
Mm-hmm.
What's one of the first things you learn as a kid? You can't define something with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's a chair? A chair is a chair.
I think, and I'm trying to give, there's a lot of benefit of the doubt here, is that there's the social of gender identity and like what you're trying to display, right? And then there's the literal male, female, like XY chromosome kind of thing.
Okay, fair enough.
And so I think what he's trying to say is a woman is a person that externally presents and wants people to accept them as female.
Right. So what's female?
Female, I would say, would be like the genitalia. It would be like the...
But the fact that he can't say that, you're doing it. You're answering the question that he's not.
Well, I'm using a lot of unsafe words. So that's why. But
that's what I'm saying. It's just like, this is a circular conversation because he's defining the thing by the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. It's insanity.
I think the problem is, like how the word normal is a bad word, but the literal meaning is just majority.
I didn't know normal was a bad word.
No, normal is a bad word. It's just like, if a trans man came up to you and said, yeah, I'm trans. What about you? And you said, no, I'm normal. Like it has a negative connotation. Like in.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever. The point is, normal pretty much means average or majority in most senses. So it's like the goal of a trans person is to be managed and treated and looked at the same way that the majority is of what they're trying to display. If I'm a trans woman, my goal is to be a woman, be like as if I was born as one.
Mm.
So there's a lot of other things like involved as far as like a lot of cisgendered women having the playing dress up issue. But overall, a trans woman's goal is to be a cis woman.
Right.
But you can't say that.
Because that defeats the entire gender theory.
Yeah. But like at the end of the day, a woman is a woman that's born as a woman, is a cis woman. Unless there's a asterisk italicized like thing next to it. But overall, a woman is the majority of what a woman is. And just because 0.01% of people have a different expression of that doesn't then mean that the cisgendered, carbon copy thing that we've been abiding by this whole time is wrong. But you can't make that foundation in a conversation like this when you believe the things that you believe as far as like it being this made up societal construct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is all the language you can use to answer the question you've pulled it out of your...
So he's got nothing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, how does this guy have a job?
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
No, I would like you to give me anything
Just
but the actual
definition?
term. Yeah, I would like you to give me a definition. I didn't specify what the definition should be. You won't answer it, so now we're here.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
Bruh. The cognitive dissonance is at an all-time high. He just acknowledged what a circular definition is.
Mm-hmm.
In an attempt to say he's not giving a circular definition, he said, I'm giving you a circular definition. Take that. How you like them apples? So we're a quarter of the way through. We're probably going to do this in multiple parts because it's kind of long. So yeah, stay tuned for the next one, y'all. This is, I seen people react to like small clips and tidbits or whatever. It had been on my list just because I was like, man, this is an interesting, concept, an interesting premise. I did not expect this. Only because it's just like, even me as a person who knows that just because you have a degree doesn't necessarily mean you're intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. But there's still some standardization of knowledge or intelligence that we kind of assume somebody has if they have a degree, especially if they're teaching at a university, all these things, right? To see these people that are authoritative figures on the issue that have nothing, I'm disheartened for the sake of the conversation. I want them to have something so the conversation can be better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because we can't go anywhere. You got nothing at the surface. We'll come back to this. I might have to break this up into little clips or whatever, but yeah, this is interesting. Till next time, y'all. I digress.